What would you do if you walked in on a moment someone wasn't ready to share, and realized you had a choice that could change everything? This isn't just a story, it's a quiet turning point. One unexpected encounter inside a familiar home leads to conversations that go deeper than they should, and a connection that begins to reshape two lives in ways neither of them expected. A struggle hidden behind closed doors. A decision to step in instead of walk away. And a journey that blurs the line between guidance, growth, and something far more complicated. Backhand index pointing right, stay till the end, because sometimes, the smallest moment becomes the one that changes everything. There are moments in life you're not prepared for. Not because they're dramatic or loud, but because they catch you off guard in the most ordinary way. That's how it happened. Nothing special about the day. No warning signs. Just another evening in a house that had long settled into a quiet, predictable rhythm. My wife had stepped out to visit a friend. She said she wouldn't be long, but I knew how those visits went, hours of talking, laughing, losing track of time. It meant the house would be mine for a while. Or so I thought. I had just finished going through some work emails when I realized I'd left my charger in the hallway near his room. I didn't think much of it. I walked down the corridor, the same way I had 1,000 times before. But this time, something felt different. His door wasn't fully closed. Just slightly open. Enough to notice movement inside. I wasn't trying to invade his privacy. That's not the kind of man I am. I've always believed that respect is the foundation of any relationship, especially one as delicate as ours. But something made me pause. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was the sound. Not loud. Not obvious. Just unusual. I knocked lightly. No response. I hesitated, then pushed the door open just enough to see inside. And that's when I caught him. Not in the way people might assume. It means you're treating yourself like a project instead of a person. He stared at me, confused. I don't follow. I walked over, pulling a chair closer so I could sit across from him. Let me ask you something, I said. Why are you doing all this? He opened his mouth to answer. Then stopped. Because he didn't have a simple answer. He started, then sighed. I feel like I'm behind. Behind who? Everyone, he said. Other guys. People my age. They just get it. They know how to talk, how to act, how to be confident. And you think watching videos will fix that? I thought it would, he admitted. I nodded slowly. I get it. He looked surprised. You do? More than you think. Because the truth was, I had been there once. A long time ago. Before life shaped me into who I am now. Before experience replaced uncertainty. You don't build confidence by copying other people, I continued. You build it by understanding yourself. And how do I do that? He asked. That's the part no one teaches, I said. The room fell quiet. But this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was open. He leaned forward slightly. So what do I do? I looked at him for a moment. Not as a stepson. Not as someone I had kept at a distance for years. But as someone standing at a crossroads. I'll help you, I said finally. The words came out before I could overthink them. And the moment they did, I knew something had changed. Not just for him. But for me too. Because helping him meant getting involved. Getting closer. Breaking the distance I had carefully maintained for years. And once that distance is gone, you don't always get it back. But in a moment of vulnerability, he was sitting at his desk, shoulders tense, staring at his laptop screen with a kind of frustration I hadn't seen before. Papers were scattered around him. Notes. Diagrams. Videos paused mid-play. He turned sharply when he noticed me. For a second, there was panic in his eyes. Then embarrassment. And finally, something else. Defensiveness. What? He said quickly, closing the laptop halfway as if that would hide everything. I leaned against the doorframe, keeping my tone calm. I knocked. No, you didn't. I did, I replied. You didn't hear me. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Whatever. I'm busy. I should have left. That would have been the easiest thing to do. The safest. But something about the way he looked, frustrated, guarded, almost defeated, made me stay. You don't look busy, I said. You look stuck. That hit a nerve. I'm fine, he snapped. I didn't react. I've learned over the years that people rarely mean what they say in moments like that. I'm not here to judge you, I said quietly. He looked at me then. Really looked. As if trying to figure out whether I was being honest. And after a few seconds, something shifted. Not completely. But enough. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. I don't get it, he admitted. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. Get what? He hesitated. Then, reluctantly, he turned the laptop back toward me. It was a series of tutorials. Self-development content. Confidence building. Communication skills. Body language. Everything. I raised an eyebrow slightly. You've been watching all this? For weeks, he said. And it's not working. There was frustration in his voice. But underneath it, insecurity. That's when I understood. This wasn't about the videos. It wasn't about techniques or strategies. It was about something deeper. Something he didn't know how to fix. You're trying too hard, I said. He frowned. What does that even mean? The first thing I realized after offering to help him was that I had no clear plan. Not a structured one, anyway. There was no manual for this. No step-by-step guide on how to teach someone to become comfortable in their own skin. Everything I had learned about confidence, about presence, about being a man who understood himself, it hadn't come from books or videos. It came from failure. From awkward conversations. From getting things wrong more times than I could count. And now, somehow, I had to translate all of that into something he could understand. We started small. Not with theory. But with observation. Stop trying to perform, I told him the next evening as we sat across from each other in the living room. Just exist. He frowned immediately. That sounds like something people say when they don't have real advice. I couldn't help but smirk. Fair. Then let me put it another way, stop thinking about how you look while you're talking to someone. That's impossible, he said. That's all I think about. I know, I replied. That's the problem. He leaned back, clearly skeptical. So what, I just magically stop caring? No, I said calmly. You shift what you care about. He watched me closely now. How? By focusing on the other person instead of yourself. He didn't respond right away. I could see the gears turning. You're saying I'm too self-aware? I'm saying you're trapped in your own head, I corrected. That landed. Because it was true. Over the next few days, we kept talking. Not just in passing, but deliberately. I started pointing things out. The way he hesitated before speaking. The way his shoulders tensed when he felt unsure. The way he avoided eye contact at the exact moments it mattered most. At first, he resisted. No one likes having their habits exposed. But slowly, he started listening. Really listening. You notice everything, don't you? He said one night. Not everything, I replied. Just the things that matter. He nodded slowly. And you're going to teach me all this? I paused before answering. Not teach, I said. Show. Because teaching implies rules. And what he needed wasn't rules. It was awareness. That's when things started to shift. Not dramatically, but noticeably. He became more present. More intentional. Less forced. And for the first time since I had known him, I saw something different in him. Not confidence. Not yet. But potential. And strangely enough, that realization affected me too. Because helping him wasn't just about him anymore. It was forcing me to reflect on myself. On the man I had become. On the parts of me I had neglected. And the more time we spent talking, the more I realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't just changing him. It was changing me. It happened gradually. So gradually, in fact, that I didn't notice it at first. The dynamic between us began to change. The distance that had once defined our relationship started to fade. Not completely. But enough. We talked more easily now. Laughed more. Shared things that went beyond surface-level conversations. And with that, came something else. Respect. Not the polite kind we had always maintained. But something deeper. Something earned. You weren't always like this, were you? He asked one evening. Like what? Like this, he gestured vaguely. Calm. Certain. I chuckled softly. Not even close. He leaned forward slightly. So what changed? I hesitated. Because that question didn't have a simple answer. Experience, I said finally. That's it? That's everything, I replied. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't fully satisfied. You make it sound simple, he said. It's not, I admitted. It just looks that way from the outside. Silence settled between us. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was thoughtful. You ever wish you could go back? He asked suddenly. To what? To when you didn't know all this, he said. When things were simpler. I shook my head. No. Why not? Because not knowing comes with its own kind of weight, I said. You just don't realize it until it's gone. He leaned back, considering that. I think I'm starting to understand, he said quietly. And I believed him. Because I could see it. In the way he carried himself. In the way he spoke. In the way he no longer rushed to fill silence. He was changing. And watching that change did something to me. Something I hadn't expected. It made me feel responsible. Not in a burdensome way. But in a way that made me more aware of my own actions. My own words. Because now, they mattered more. More than they had before. And that realization came with its own kind of pressure. Because guiding someone means you have to be certain of where you're leading them. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't entirely sure. There's a point in every relationship where things either solidify or become something else entirely. I didn't realize we had reached that point until it was already happening. It started with a simple moment. We were sitting closer than usual. Not intentionally. Just naturally. Talking, like we always did. But this time, the air felt different. He wasn't asking questions. He wasn't seeking guidance. He was just there. Present. Comfortable. And that's when it hit me. We weren't just having conversations anymore. We were sharing space in a way that felt deeper. More personal. You ever think about how strange this is? He asked suddenly. What? This, he said. Us talking like this. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, I admitted. I have. And I think it's something we needed, I said. He nodded slowly. I think so too. There was a pause. A long one. not awkward, but significant. Because in that silence, there was understanding. Unspoken, but clear. And that's when I realized something important. This wasn't just mentorship anymore. It was connection. The kind that doesn't fit neatly into categories. The kind that makes you question where the boundaries are. And whether they still exist. That realization didn't scare me. But it made me cautious. Because connection, when it's not defined properly, can become complicated. And complicated things rarely stay simple for long. Eventually, life moved forward. It always does. My wife returned. The house filled with its usual rhythm. Noise. Routine. Familiarity. On the surface, everything was the same. But underneath, nothing was. We didn't talk as much anymore. Not because we didn't want to, but because we didn't need to. The foundation had already been built. And in a way, that made everything quieter. More settled. He carried himself differently now. More grounded. More certain. And I knew I had played a part in that. But what I didn't expect was how much it had changed me. Helping him forced me to confront things I had ignored for years. My own complacency. My own routines. The parts of my life I had stopped questioning. It made me realize something uncomfortable. I had been living on autopilot. And guiding him out of that mindset forced me to face it in myself. We never spoke about it directly. About what that time meant. About what it changed. We didn't need to. Because some things don't require words. They just exist. Quietly. Permanently. My wife never knew. Not because there was anything to hide in the way people might assume. But because some experiences are personal. Internal. They belong to the people who lived them. And no one else. I still think about that moment. The one where I stood at his door. The one where I chose to step in instead of walk away. At the time, it felt small. Insignificant. But now I understand. That was the moment everything shifted. Not because of what happened. But because of what it led to. Because sometimes, the most unexpected occurrences aren't the ones that shake your life loudly. They're the ones that change you quietly. From the inside out. And once that kind of change happens, you don't go back. You just become someone new. Not every life-changing moment is loud. Some happen in silence, behind closed doors, in choices no one else ever sees. This story wasn't about perfection, it was about growth, understanding, and the unexpected ways people shape each other's lives. Now I want to hear from you. Backhand index pointing right. Do you think stepping in was the right choice? Backhand index pointing right, or should he have walked away and left things as they were? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read every one of them. And if you enjoy deep, emotional, and thought-provoking stories that explore real human struggles and transformation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story might hit even closer to home. Until next time. Remember, sometimes the moments we almost ignore are the ones that define us forever. Disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and storytelling purposes only. It explores mature themes, emotional tension, and complex human experiences intended for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Any resemblance to real persons, events, or situations is purely coincidental.